Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chat EBC, where we're going to be meeting as many of the European Bridge chapter members as we can over the coming weeks, months, and hopefully years. So it's a little bit of just getting to know the members, getting to know different things about the different people who we're spending our quarterly retreats with. And today I am delighted to be joined by Helga. Helga, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi. Nice to be on the show and being the guinea pig. Let me put my glasses back on.
So this is as this is the very first show. Helga, in true EO fashion, said, I need somebody to try this out with me." And Helga went, "Yeah, no, it's no problem. I'm not doing that this afternoon." So let's dive into it. So Helga, thanks a million for being the guinea pig.
No problem.
So Helga, tell us a little bit about yourself, because your accent doesn't lead me to think, well, I know, but I'm trying to set it up for the purpose of the podcast. You're not originally from Europe as part of the Europe Bridge chapter member.
No, I'm not. I'm originally South African, born and raised. I spent quite a few years after I finished studying in London and really loved it. Moved back to South Africa and started my company there. And in 2017, I kind of came back to Europe and I came to Paris. And I came for a short contract that ended up being a contract that I really enjoyed being in Paris. And I decided to run my business from Paris. So, yeah.
Very good. And so tell us, what is your business then? So if you're running the business from Paris, it's based in South Africa, but what do you do?
Well, weirdly enough, it's not based in South Africa. So that's probably one of the reasons why I can move.
This is why I love EO. You never know where a story is going to take you.
Exactly. So my company is called Manta Ray. We're a user experience research and strategy company, and we help businesses and companies that want to come into Africa to understand their market and to design products and services for that market with a special area focus area around cultural inclusion and diversity. So my teams and my company is actually spread across the continent. We have now, since COVID, we moved over to being Mauritian-based company, but we have offices and teams in South Africa and Kenya and in Nigeria. But we cover around 23 countries across Africa, and my team speaks over 95 languages in Africa. So, so yes, that's in a nutshell my company. Yeah.
Your team speaks 95 languages.
Yes, as their mother tongue. Yeah, so we have trained teams across the continent So think about it this way. When you conduct an interview with someone in their mother tongue, they are able to feel more comfortable and to be able to express themselves. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you speak to someone in their second language, they may not feel that comfortable and they may not really be able to express themselves. When we help our clients understand their customers or understand their customers' truth, we have to speak the language of that person. So that's why my team speaks so many languages, because there's over 2,000 languages in Africa. And so we're only really scratching the surface with the amount of languages we speak. But it's the languages of a mother tongue. So it's first language speakers.
I mean, that's phenomenal. But then do you have English as kind of the lingua franca, how you normally do business with everybody in the organization? Or do people have their own working teams where they would be in their own languages?
We have working teams in our own languages. We communicate with each other generally in English. We also have translators at all times. You know, most of our clients are English, so it's easy because it means that we always have to have a translator. Sometimes with the DRC, for example, we'd very often brief the teams in English with a French translator and kind of work that way, which is difficult. And in Egypt, it also is the case. We might have people there that we have these translators with us, you know, as we're going through it. Funnily enough.
That's phenomenal. And I suppose that is also because I do remember I've been in EBC now for a while, and obviously we have people from I can't remember, is it 18 different nationalities in the chat? No, it's more. It's,
I think we now almost, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're about 26 now.
26. But so not everybody is native English speaker. So obviously there are people who are native English speakers, but we do forum in EBC in English, and it's something that, and it's only now kind of dawning on me why it's so important for you, because you at the last two have actually stood up and reminded everybody about the fact that we are communicating in English, but it's not necessarily everybody's first language. And like now it's clicking with me why this resonates so deeply with you in EBC. So that's really fascinating that you have that many languages in your business.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. We have a kind of a motto. We believe that with diversity and complexity comes solutions. So we don't want a homogenous society. We'd like a society that's diverse, and with that comes many languages.
I wholeheartedly go along with that. I mean, in my previous life, we had an English language school, so we had like 50 different nationalities in the school during the year, and sometimes there could be culture clashes or language level clashes. So you had beginners who were trying to flirt with advanced and things like that. So it was sometimes it could be a very interesting coffee room.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to learn French in my 40s, which is probably the most difficult language I've ever kind of tried to contend with. So yes.
But especially in Paris, I mean, my memory of Paris is if you try to speak, if you don't get it perfect, you can be met with a little bit of resistance, and they just, I would speak English with you. So
they do that, or they'll say, "I like your accent and I can understand you, so let's just switch to English and I can speak my English." So they do like doing that. But if you say, "Please, I want to learn French," they'll go, "Okay, I'll be patient."
You're welcome. I'll be patient.
I'll be patient. Thank you.
So tell me, how'd you get involved in this? This is a very interesting business, helping brands and helping companies to launch into what is a huge market of Africa. How'd you get involved in this?
Well, I actually got into user experience back in, and I studied it firstly, studied art and design and new media at the time. Mm-hmm. And then went to London, and through working with a few companies, I kind of went into UX. And when I decided to go back to South Africa, one of the big things that I picked up, where I was at the time working at a travel kind of online travel aggregator, and the one piece of data they didn't have was Africa. So they would like mark out all the whole world, and like Africa would just be this like gray space. They had no data, And I was
and on a map, that's a huge gray space.
That's a very big gray space. So when I decided to go back to South Africa, I was like, I want to go back with the intention of being able to offer products and services for the African market, and being able to design for this market, because Europe doesn't really understand the market. America doesn't really care about the market. So it's, so it seemed to be a kind of a good option. So that's how I kind of went back to South Africa, and I started my company doing very much just user experience for businesses in South Africa. Mm-hmm. So the telcos and the fintechs and things like that, and the banks. And then with time, we started getting clients who were very interested in actually launching products in Africa, and then realizing what they would do is they would just launch the product, and then they'd go, I don't understand, the data in Africa doesn't line up with anything else in the rest of the world, and I don't know what's happening. So we would say, well, maybe they're using your product a little differently. And that's how we actually started doing research there. Generally Africans use products very differently in their, because their context is so different. They, for example, they use their mobile phone very differently to how you would use it. For them, it's their what they call.
And they probably use it very differently to how my 16-year-old daughter uses it, which it seems to be like 58 minutes of every hour of the day. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Weirdly enough, the African market's very closely linked to how teenagers in Europe use it. So they are what we call Uber users. They tend to be very advanced in how they use their phone, more so than our age, in Europe. And the closest people normally are actually your 13-year-old Europeans. So we used to actually use African research to say, okay, well, if this is happening in Africa, it's probably going to start happening in Europe pretty quick. And that's one of the things that's kind of interesting for a lot of clients, because they go, oh, we're so advanced, and then they go to Africa and they're like, oh wow, we don't have a clue.
I do remember seeing a report years ago about how, like, when Europe and the US and everyone was using computers and everyone had laptops, and Africa didn't have that yet, and then they kind of leapfrogged straight into smartphones because they could do so much with it, so they didn't have that tied to a keyboard, so they are more flexible. And that's still the case?
Yeah, so it's what we call mobile first, mobile only behaviors, and yes, that is still the case. And I think, but we're seeing leapfrog kind of things happening on many levels. For example, in Europe, you've got e-commerce. In Africa, we don't have e-commerce. We only have social commerce. Only now Europe is actually grabbing on, and America is grabbing on to something called social commerce. But actually, social commerce is pretty big, and it's the norm in Africa. And we're not most probably never going to go to e-commerce. We will not really go to websites and things like that. We won't do that kind of commerce. We would do social commerce. So that's the next, what we call the next leapfrog that's happening at the moment in Africa. So yeah, no, it's a very, and absolutely correct. It's a very interesting field. It changes all the time. Lots of different cultures, lots of different ways of doing stuff.
I was actually going to ask that, because I know, like, in Europe, marketing something in Ireland and marketing something in Germany, okay, there's the language difference, but there's also cultural differences, design differences and things like that. Are there, I'm presuming there are, Africa's an enormous continent, big differences in how you roll out something in South Africa versus Kenya versus Nigeria or something like that?
There really should be. Most of the bigger companies that's coming into Africa don't. They just blanket it. But some of the bigger companies that are doing what they call global products, they do research in Africa, and that's where we come in, to ensure that they actually launch a product in the market with local context in mind. I'll give you an example. Like, you can't launch the same product with the same Swahili as is spoken in Kenya to Tanzania. The Tanzanians will pick it up immediately, and they won't use your product. They will say, "Oh, it's Kenyan," wow. and vice versa. And we've been doing some studies with looking at, like, translations and how well AI, for example, can translate Kiswahili, and in both cases, both of them were like, this is not real Swahili. This is not
okay.
This is not our language. So the cultural aspect even comes in on that level. But yes, definitely with product, it's a very important thing to be aware of, that it doesn't always land the same in the different markets. Ethiopia, for example, is a very different market altogether. It was never colonized, for one. So its culture is extremely deep and complex, and if you launch a product there, you can't just launch a product. It'd probably not be utilized. They're not that fascinated by Western society.
We're not as great as we think we are. So what's with all that's going on, everything, like helping companies being based between Europe and South Africa and working across the whole continent, what's on your mind at the moment? Good, bad? Like, what's taking up space with you at the moment that you're looking to either celebrate or get over or get around?
Well, a lot of things, I would probably say.
Yeah. when I thought of this question and I was saying, will I ask EO or is this could be an entire program on its own? But just give me one or two things off the top of your head.
It really can be a very, 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 very long conversation. At the moment, I am busy working on a keynote presentation for Spain for the UX, so the UX masterclass. I'm a keynote speaker.
Fantastic.
So,
they better be some really well designed slides.
Absolutely. And it's and really I'm at the moment kind of thinking about what I want to put in those slides, because it's all about what can Africa teach the rest of the world in terms of the future. So it's looking to that. I mean, Africa is changing so rapidly. Our median age is 18. We are young. And when I say median age is 18, let's let it sit in. The middle age of us, 18. I think Ireland, it's 37 or 38.
Yeah. We're a lot of white-haired people with freckles, though.
Exactly. Europe is, I think, the average age of 38. So coming in at 18, there's a lot happening. We will have 130 million consumers coming in the market in the next 10 years. Whereas Europe is only doing 5 million, it's going down in terms of consumerism. So at the moment, it's like, what are the things that we need? What does Africa need to be capable and to have a consumer base coming in on the market? What is the human capital looking like? What are the things that they don't have yet that they need to have? They will be the largest workforce in the world. So how can we utilize that workforce? Those are the kind of things that I'm thinking about at the moment, and probably going to throw it in my presentation and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, just throw it in your presentation on UX. It'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. No, so yeah, so that's some of the things that I'm thinking about at the moment. It's like, how do we really change? Our continent is a super exciting continent, so there's a lot happening there, and how do I inspire the rest of the world to get as excited about it as I am?
Well, I mean, there's so many moving parts in that, from like, the way you've described it. There's so many things, and obviously so many cultural changes and cultural differences. So the question that I'm because career guidance and changing careers is something that I'm interested in for people pivoting. Obviously, this is a real passion project for you, or not a passion project. It's a passion drive for you at the moment. But if you weren't doing that, so I don't know what parts of it that you enjoy the most, whether it's the data or the people or the presentation or whatever, but if you weren't doing what you're doing now in your own business, what would you like to explore? If you had just a clean sheet and you said, right, I'm going to explore something different, what are you not? You said you want to learn French, but I mean, what do you?
I mean, I really love what I do. So I've created my own niche, and like what I do is really what I'm passionate about. And all my coaches have always said to me, like, if you sold your business tomorrow, what would you do? And I'd say, I'd open another one of my businesses. It's like, okay, this is stupid. It's like,
I'm pretty sure whoever bought your business would not be happy with that answer, but yes, I get the point.
Exactly. So it's like, I've now designed my business that it's pretty much unsellable. But if that did happen, I'd probably do something completely random and different. I'd probably paint.
Cool. Something creative.
Absolutely. I have it as a hobby, and I love it. So I'd probably continue. I'd probably get myself a big ass atelier and paint my days away.
Cool.
Happily.
To me, that sounds like a MyEO event before one of our retreats, that you get some kind of a studio, and if people want to do some kind of painting. Anyway, that's just a thought that jumped into my head there.
It would be completely just, money, no object, become a poor artist and just paint.
Yeah, I love that. Money, no object, I'll be a poor artist. So long as I have money as no object, I'll be a poor artist. I love that. So how long have you been in EO? Because you, between South Africa and Paris, how long have you been a member?
I've been a member now for 9 years. I think.
Mhm.
I think it's 2012 or 2014. Somehow I think it's 2014.
Yeah, the
Where
2 years of COVID just messes up everybody's,
exactly,
mental
exactly.
arithmetic, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
so that's why I
Um,
messed up with it.
but you started in South Africa and moved to Paris, is that right?
I started in South Africa, and actually in South Africa, I joined EMP.
Okay.
So the MIT
Yeah,
EMP,
I've
and
done that. It's an amazing program.
super cool program, and moved to Paris at the same time. And when I needed to renew, I was kind of confused because I wasn't in South Africa. I was in
Mhm,
a forum in South Africa, and it really didn't make a lot of sense to renew in South Africa. Um, and then I found out about Paris trying to start.
mhm.
So I think it was in 2017 that I kind of signed up for the Paris chapter. Kind of, we went to
And I
chapter.
I and I remember that, and it was very much, "Okay, we have enough people to just about enough people to launch a chapter," which means everybody's on the board.
Exactly. It was something like that. It was, I think yeah, when I joined, I think we were 6 people or 7. It was
Mm.
very small, very, very small.
And so, as well as being in Paris, you're obviously a member of EBC. You've been involved. You're on the board of EBC at the moment.
Yeah.
What what for you then is special? And just given the way that you've described how your business runs and what you're interested in, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's special about EBC for you?
Well, you do realize the answer. It is basically there. I like meeting people with different backgrounds, different cultures, different perspectives to mine.
Mhm.
And coming to Europe and being part of the European Bridge, it just opened the doors a little bit wider for me, and meeting people from all walks of life, from such a variety of backgrounds and cultures. There's a lot to be learned from it. So, so yes, it's pretty obvious for me to be part of the European
Mm.
Bridge. I also, at the time, I really liked the routine of it. Meeting every quarter
Mm.
and being in a quarterly forum. That I really, really enjoy, and I prefer that to a monthly forum. It's definitely one of the things that I prefer.
So you've been a member of EBC a bit longer than I have. What's your favorite EBC moment so far? Is there anything now? Obviously, form confidential and all that, but is there anything that you think, "Gee, that was a really amazing experience, or I had a really deep conversation that really helped me figure out something in the last couple of sessions you've been at?"
Well, I think every single one of the EBC events that I've attended have been like that for me. Um, but I think the one that stands out is actually the Greece one. I I thoroughly loved it. Michalis looked after us so well, and we went to so many places. And Greece was never really on my list of places to go to.
Hmm.
Um, until I went, and then I was like, okay, now I have to go every year. I love the place, Now
Uh,
I know it. I've always loved the Greek guys, and now actually haven't gone there. I really, really enjoy Greece as well, so I'm going again. But
Very good.
but I mean, every single time it's unique, and I learn something different, and I have those deep moments with one or two or three people, and that's the kind of the real kind of treasure that you kind of have, that kind of moments where you have that depth and that vulnerability, and also being able to cry to my heart's content.
Yes, I've been in a couple of forums now, and I think just the last one was the only one that there was no tears, but that we came close on one or two occasions, but it wasn't it wasn't as emotional. But yeah, there's been some real rocks being moved for people. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, and that's where that whole thing that I've kind of said in the beginning, for me, not being a homogenous society, having all of these different cultures, it also allows us to really move those big things in our lives and to get perspectives that we would never even consider.
Hmm.
Um, And EBC generally always offer that, because there's always someone new that you're meeting, someone that has come in completely from a left field to where you're at, challenging you and to go that step further, which I really, really love.
Fantastic. So I have a random question generator here. That I'm just going to ask you 5 and they are pure random. So I'm going to click a button and I'll get a different question. So the first one, if you could go back in time, which decade would you choose to live in?
Which decade would I choose to live in? Ooh, I don't know. I kind of like where I'm at the moment.
Okay. That's fair enough.
Even though the climate change is fucking me up. So like maybe going back to the 1940s, when we had to change stuff for the good.
Interesting. Okay. Next question. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Ooh, the best concert I've ever been to. Ooh. Well, it's not a concert, it's an opera.
Okay.
And it was
we will extend the definition of concert to incorporate operas for today.
Please do. It was watching Pretty Yende performing La Traviata at Palais Garnier. She did it in a modern take, and I just I would basically had goosebumps the whole entire time and cried. It was really good.
Wow.
Shocking.
Okay.
What did you think?
Here's a good one. What's a place you've never been to but always wanted to visit? Now you can't say Greece anymore. But you never wanted to go to Greece. No, where have you always wanted to go but you haven't been yet?
Actually, Prague. It was always on my bucket list. I read all of Milan Kundera's books. Okay. It was like a big thing for me. It was a big I cried last week because he passed away, and I was like, I'm completely gutted. One of the reasons of learning French was because he turned around and said his books were translated better in French than they were in English. But Prague, I think I read. I think probably the first book I read was about Prague when I was 16. And I was like, oh, I need to go and see the lights of Prague when it's foggy and cold.
So I have been on the Charles Bridge in the middle of a snowstorm, which was just pure magic. It was amazing, but freezing, but amazing. It was really cool. I was staying on one side and had a business meeting on the other side. It was phenomenal. So wholeheartedly encourage you to go. And we have a member from Brno who can show you around. So
always good. Always good.
Next question. This is number 4, I think. What's the best gift you've ever given or received? And I know we're in EBC and we give each other hugs all the time. That doesn't count.
The best gift given and received, I would probably
received, whichever one.
It's a bit of both, because I've given it to myself and I've given it to others because it was so good. I would say going to Saviti, spending some time completely remote in a bush lodge.
Sorry, and where? I didn't get the name of that.
Saviti.
Is that
a private game reserve near Kruger, and just being in the wild by yourself and just being surrounded by amazing animals and nature.
Cool. That sounds amazing, actually. So if you want to give that gift to anybody else, hi, I'm here. happy to help. Okay. So the final question, the random question: what's the best or worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Worst or best?
Best or worst. Best or worst.
I can't actually think of any, to be honest. I'm drawing a blank.
So funny enough, like, I think that's a great question, but funny enough, back to your point on every time we meet in EBC and things, you get those little nuggets, like, because we're exposed to so much great advice that sometimes it is hard to pick out one. Sometimes it's easy enough to pick out the bad bits, but then if we don't take it, it's not bad advice, it's just somebody talking. So
exactly. No, I have to kind of think about it. No, I can't honestly think there's not one that comes to mind straight off the bat.
Well, Helga, thank you very, very much. It was a lot of fun getting to know you a little bit better, and hopefully people who are watching get to know you a little bit better as well. So when we meet up at our next retreat, people will either be able to say, oh, I also like art, or I'm also, I love UX, or they might have something that they didn't know about you that can spark a conversation which can help them or help you, which is really why I want to do this, to help people to have know more about each other and have more conversations. So Helga, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
And I'll see you in Riga. Oh no, that's going to date this. Anyway, see you at the next retreat.
See you at the next retreat.